I've held off talking about the protests that have been going on campuses throughout the nation for a little while, mostly because I feel like I have said my piece and what I truly believe to be the right way to view the whole Israel Palestine situation way, way, way back in October. But I think, especially with what has happened this past week, with the protests turning violent, with police coming in and in kind of dramatic fashion breaking up some of these camps and everything, that now would probably be a kind of a appropriate time to talk about this and to reflect on what we've been seeing. Now, our passage today I picked was from Colossians 2. Paul here is specifically talking about, belief in Jesus and not being swayed away from that belief by the philosophies of man or anything like that. But I do think that the kind of advice that Paul is giving here, specifically in verse 8, of watching out that no one takes you captive through philosophy and empty deceit according to human tradition, according to elemental principles of the world and not according to Christ, is a bit of advice that we should be listening to, especially in a topic that is as emotionally charged as this one. Now, to kind of review what I've sort of said in the past about all of this. I would consider myself to be pro-Israel, but not anti-Palestinian, if that makes sense. What I mean by that is that I do believe, from my own study of history, from my own sort of approach in sort of looking at especially the modern history of Israel, that the best route for peace for both of those groups of people is through supporting the Israeli state. The state of Israel is through, supporting them, especially in dealing with these different terrorist groups that are popping up and trying to sort of eliminate them. Now, I say that I'm also not anti-Palestinian in that the sense that I 100% recognize that the Palestinians have very valid complaints, also have as much right to the land as the Israelis have, and are honestly, specifically the civilians, the Palestinian civilians, they're the ones who are really the massive victim in this whole conflict. They're the ones who are really suffering. More so than anyone else, and I do genuinely feel for that. I just believe, from watching, from reading, history and everything, that it's going to be supporting Israel that we will see both of these groups of people get what they want and need and deserve, which is, peace and the ability to live out a long and happy life. Now, I bring this up, and I bring this up again, not just to review, but I also want to, kind of establish that and then follow it up with this one saying, which is that while I do believe that I am correct, mentally, I accept that I might not be. I 100% believe that it is very possible for somebody to take the opposite side of me, and maybe their opinion and their approach could be correct. With that being said, I do think that there are two areas and two kind of extremes that are definitely not correct. And that is the sort of pro-Zionist side, or what is called the Zionist movement, which sees Israel as being, sort of either God ordained to be returning to the land and God ordained to be driving out all the Palestinians from there. Or in a more secular sense, the idea that they're somehow deserving because of what has happened within the Jewish people's history of taking back what is their ancestral homeland, and that these individuals were just kind of there as a result of the Roman Empire's own action. I believe that hardline stance is inaccurate, is wrong. And on the flip side, the stance that we have been seeing in these protests, the stance that is claiming that the Palestinians are only victims, that they're victims of oppression, that they they deserve to have all this kind of support, that Hamas is this a resistance fighting force. I believe that is that's very false. And I do believe that, as I said, that the history kind of backs me up on this. But I bring this up and I bring all this up because the big thing I have noticed as I've been watching this is a big thing which I've been noticing as I've been kind of absorbing all of the sort of debate in the public sphere is that there are a lot of people who are not willing to see that's possible they're wrong. That there's a lot of people that aren't willing to see that this is a nuanced topic, and it's very likely that our opinions about what is the best way to go forward just might not be the right one. And that somebody else might have the right opinion on the other side. And that actually, if we did what they were saying, they would, then we would kind of, get to that point. And this to me is really what is the big tragedy of this conflict. Is that it tends to always sort of end up at these extremes, that it always sort of ends up at this massive budding of conflict and violence and all of these types of things, and more specifically in Israel, but we are seeing that now, kind of pop up in the United States as well. And the racism that kind of goes with it, the anti-Semitism, the anti-Arab sentiments, these are all big problems that should not be involved in this at all. The really disappointing thing and the thing that bothers me the most about this is from when I was back in Israel in college, my impression of both Israel and Palestine is that your average Israeli and your average Palestinian, they want the same thing. And honestly, they don't hate each other. They actually, they might disagree on politics and they might disagree on some things, but I personally think that if you took your average Israeli citizen, your average Palestinian citizen, you shut them in a room and said, you guys are not allowed to leave until you work out this conflict between Israel and Palestine, they probably would come up with a solution that would be pretty reasonable. And that would involve compromises on both sides and could lead to a solution. That is something which I very much believe, but unfortunately, that kind of state, that kind of chance for us to have these kind of conversations is consistently getting hijacked by these individuals who are kind of all the way out on these extremes and want something that really can't exist in the world. So I bring this all up. I know I've gotten very, very, very personal, but I believe as Christians that this is something that we do need to be involved in, and that we need to be involved in a level of kind of wisdom and understanding. One of the benefits that I at least have found that has come from my faith in looking at this is that I do feel like I am able to sort of empathize with both sides. I know enough about Jewish history, especially the ancient Jewish history up to the fall of the temple in Jerusalem in 70 AD, which resulted in the Jewish diaspora, or the Jews being moved out of Israel and into Europe, and all the persecution that came after that to the Jewish people, ultimately resulting in the Holocaust. I know all that sort of history, but I also know that after they were moved out, the Arab settlers moved in, especially under the Ottoman Turks, and they established their own identity and lived there for hundreds of years peacefully, and have ties to that land as well. And I think it's important for us to be praying for not just the peace of Jerusalem, but praying for the Palestinians as well, specifically the Palestinian civilians, not Hamas, but also praying that we as a nation can kind of get back to the point where we're able to have honest conversations and good conversations that don't devolve into shouting matches and violence and all these types of things. Because that is really where we will see stuff done, and that is really where we will see God be able to work in this situation. Amen. Now I'd like to invite you all to join me for our last worship song today.